Hello, and welcome back to the Boston Commune. This week's incredulous installment will feature commentary from Comrade Scott, Joe, Ellie, Kit, and myself. We discuss the atrophied Democratic Party's scramble to justify a bad election cycle. We side with sex workers over swerfs, make fun of Charlie Baker's ugly-ass house, consider boiling chicken in a hot spring, and we keep our wits while the fan hits the shits. So please do us a favor and share this content. Do yourself a favor and enjoy your epoch. Your epoch. Your epoch. Your epoch.
HuffPost has a whole weird news section, and none of this shit is weird at all.
Did you guys miss me, though? Sorry I didn't show up last week.
Oh, I missed you, David.
Sorry. I went a little bit too deep in the cave. I got lost. I didn't know where my laptop was in this cave, so I couldn't show up last week. Okay. I'm be quiet now. I'm gonna be quiet now. There's some bats. They're coming over here. They're looking at me a little bit too threateningly, so I'm gonna be quiet for a little while.
And harassed by bats. Oh, Joe, you know what's on this stupid Huffington Post weird news page that's not weird at all?
What?
The Belgian racing pigeon story.
The what?
So just so you know, some people do think that's a weird story.
There was a pigeon in Belgium, a racing pigeon, that sold for $1.9 million at an auction.
It's a bird story.
I will say, before we get into it, that if you're looking for weird stories, the Associated Press and Reuters both have weird story sections that are actually somewhat weird.
Red.
Weird story sections that are actually somewhat weird.
Oddities, it's called.
I read that all the time in college. Like, the first thing I do in the morning is like, oh, someone like robbed a house with like a forklift and then just kind of left it in the side of the wall.
Wow.
This is the
The House Gems continue to lose. Like,
wow.
They lost 2 more seats since we last recorded. So they lost in the New York 11th Congressional District, and the Democratic incumbent in the Utah 4th just conceded yesterday. So they're now down to a net loss of 8, which, best case scenario, Democrats will have 224 seats, which is a majority of 6. They went into the last Congress with a majority of 17. So they're kind of fucked, to put it generously, given that there are 2 or 3 more seats that they could lose by the end of the week. There's the New York 22nd, in which the Democratic incumbent, he's a blue dog, so I don't really care if he loses that much. He's losing by like 10, 11 points. Then there's an open seat the Democrats are defending in Iowa, in which the Democratic candidate is trailing by like 500 votes. There's the California 21st, which Democratic incumbent is trailing by about 2,000. And then there's the California 25th, which the Democrats could regain, possibly, but the margin is only about 100 votes. So, best case scenario, Democrats have like 225 seats. Worst case, like 221, 220. It's not great because in the last 4 midterm elections in which the Democrats have controlled the White House, they've lost an average of 31 seats. So, the fact that they've already lost this many in a year that they were supposed to be doing well in, not great. Which transitions into what I wanted to talk about AOC. She did an interview about a week after the elections with the New York Times, and she basically said the shitlibs they're just incompetent.
They were just being shitty.
The shitlibs were shit-libbing?
Yeah, that's kind of the thrust of the interview, and it's hilarious that she just so...
Here we go again.
She actually calls out one of them by name. She calls out Connor Lamb, and she says, quote, "It's malpractice. Lamb spent $2,000 on Facebook the week before the election. I don't think anybody who is not on the internet in a real way in the year of our Lord 2020 and loses an election can blame anyone else when they're not even really on the internet."
Connor Lamb, more like Connor Sheep.
More like leading the Connor Lamb to slaughter.
Bah.
And sure, Lamb ultimately did win his re-election campaign, but he won by like the skin of his teeth, and his race wasn't called for like a week until after the polls closed. Pretty bad. She also makes this point of like calling out like how like a lot of these people are just running badly organized campaigns. Most of their outreach is just TV ads and mailers that are with like big cuts going to like high-paid consultants who don't actually give a crap about whether or not campaign is successful or not. And then she calls out the DCCC's blacklist of any firm that does work with primary challengers who happen to also be like the best at digital organizing. So like she like almost explicitly says that like the party's just shooting itself in the dick just because. And she does explicitly say that she thinks the party leadership is asleep at the wheel, which also not wrong.
I feel that.
That is one big pile of shit.
And the thing that Scott wanted me to talk about was she did say that she was asked about whether or not she wanted to be in politics anymore. This actually makes me feel better about her. She was asked, is there a universe in which you would maybe run for a higher office? And she goes, I genuinely don't know. I don't even know if I want to be in politics. You know, for real, in the first 6 months of my term, I didn't even know if I was running for re-election. And when asked why, she said it's because of all the stress, all the lack of support from your own party thinking you are the enemy. When your own colleagues talk anonymously in the press and then turn around and say you're bad because you actually append your name to your opinion. And like she goes on to eventually say that she's serious when she tells people that the odds of her running for office are about the same as her just like getting out of politics and like finding somewhere to hang out. Like,
I didn't harp on you to talk about this. You suggested talking about it. It's fine.
No, I mean, to rephrase, not harp, but like, oh, you should bring this up, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't piccolo on him.
That would have been harsh because that would have been really painful on the ears. No offense to piccolo players, but man, that's like border got a dog whistle. Not the point.
Got a piccolo hater in this fucking show. I don't know. And you don't like old people. I'm just kidding.
He hates piccolos and old people, folks.
I mean, piccolos are kind of annoying, let's be real.
What the fuck is happening with all of this blasphemous anti-piccolo discussion?
They can be nice, but it's one of those instruments that it's just
I have
so
right now
easy to
decided
play
I
it
care about the piccolo.
horribly.
I'm just kidding. It's fine.
Well,
There's a reason that they include them in marching bands because you can hear them from
You could hear them from like a mile away.
from
You
Canada.
can hear your ears from a mile away.
Such a joke of a country.
also, fucking, since nobody else will, I'm gonna stand up for the piccolo snare because sometimes that shit slams. It slams, dude.
All right. Maybe I can get in line with everybody's anti-piccolo stance because, I cannot stand piccolo snare. I understand. I know the context. It's you metalheads and your death metals.
You metalheads, you scum of the earth.
I just learned what a piccolo snare is thanks to Google because I literally had no idea what you were talking about. Oh, it's so cute. So tiny.
All right.
The boy is not thick.
She's not the only incumbent to shit on the party explicitly. In that famous conference call in which Abby Spanberger said, former CIA Abby Spanberger, I feel like they need to remind everybody of that she said that we should never do socialism. Rashida Tlaib was basically saying that like the party doesn't give a shit about her constituents and that like we're not going to get anywhere as a party if you like don't listen to people like me.
You don't want your burger made of Spam either. I mean, you want real ground beef or a black bean alternative if you're so inclined. But Spam burger doesn't sound good.
Maybe some impossible meat, beyond meat.
We're feisty tonight.
I have heard from like woodsy people. I'll be more specific. My
People who live in trees?
No, well, actually, kind of. My former sponsor literally lived in the woods for like 15 years, and
I can respect it.
Yeah, and he made like a mean spam dish, I guess.
This creates more questions than answers.
Well, I will not answer them tonight.
If the dial of ideas was turned to low for the last few years, it's quickly moving into the hot position.
No, I killed it. Okay.
Joe on.
So the fact that the left edge of the party, so to speak, is actually starting to like publicly starting to like call out the shitlibs for what they are is kind of indicative of actually a broader, more antagonistic posturing of the left wing of the Democratic Party in general, because the Congressional Progressive Caucus actually this week restructured the rules of the caucus to allow them to be more effective, more militant, and more of a cohesive formation within the broader House Democratic Caucus. They got rid of one of the two co-chair positions so that like they could have one single chairperson, so that like they could actually be able to respond to things more quickly instead of having to get the input of multiple people. They also changed rules regarding like voting and attendance. Like under the new bylaws of the caucus, members have to be present at least half of caucus meetings, with the exception of like emergencies like congressional duties, like such as committee hearings or like family emergencies. If you don't attend at least half of the meetings, you might be, on probation.
They have like cutesy punishments for people who don't fall in line.
No, I mean like you could be like kicked out of the caucus. They're like, because before the Congressional Progressive Caucus, they're very loose on like who could join. There wasn't really much in the way of ideological discipline, which is why the Progressive Caucus hasn't been as useful as it could be. So now they're changing like the rules to be able to make it more easier for the caucus to like enforce like discipline amongst its members.
Joe, fourth.
So the caucus is also implementing a new policy allowing for any member to seek a formal position from the caucus on a bill, putting the caucus on record for or against legislation as long as 2/3 of the caucus agrees. And members are also going to be expected to vote in line with the caucus position at least 2/3 of the time on the House floor whenever the group takes an official position on a bill or risk being put on probation and subsequently kicked out of the caucus.
So what do you think that means for the ideological drift of that caucus? From what I understand, it's progressive in name only.
I'm a liberal. I think capitalism is good.
I mean, it's been in name only largely because of the fact there has been no discipline ideologically. Because the problem with the Progressive Caucus is there were no like membership requirements or like criteria. So a lot of the times there would be a lot of like center-right Democrats who will like write a $5,000 check to be part of the caucus and then claim that they are quote-unquote progressive so as to help protect them from primary challenges. But this like creates a bit more discipline. And I think this will push the caucus to the left because Pramila Jayapal is going to be the only co-chair. And honestly, in domestic policy, in some ways, she's to the left of Bernie, like at least on healthcare policy, for example. In the House, her version of Medicare for All actually has a faster phase-in than Bernie's proposed Medicare for All. And the reason for that is that like she wants to give the health insurance industry less time to be able to scramble to get jam their foot in the door before a Medicare for All system like slams the door shut, so to speak, for example.
That answers my question because my thought was immediately like, if you have a shitlib running the Progressive Caucus, it's going to be the same.
It's funny, like some of the members were kind of unhappy about this, and by some, I mean like the more conservative members who aren't really that like progressive at all, but like they're like part of the caucus for like the sake of like protecting themselves from primary challengers. Literally the head of the center-right New Democrat coalition was a member of the Progressive Caucus, but he's like chair of like the pro-Wall Street caucus in the party. It's kind of a problem.
But like part of the problem is that progressive doesn't mean anything. Like it's
true.
Moving forward, but forward to what? Forward to a liberal wonderland or forward to actually addressing power imbalances? And it doesn't really say. And if you ask what the end goal or what you're moving towards is to many people who say they're progressive, they don't know. They don't necessarily have a class analysis. They don't necessarily even have a good power analysis. They just know that sometimes things suck. But maybe small businesses is the answer. And like some of them seem to seriously believe that based on emails from my house rep.
Kit instilled exactly how I feel about the word progressive.
The end goal of the progressive movement is like everybody drives a Tesla and
It's woke shibboleths, basically. It's not really like there isn't an end goal.
But like the way I see the Progressive Caucus is I see it like slowly being like the left's foothold within Congress, because the caucus leadership, it's like some of the most left-wing people in the caucus. Like Ilhan Omar is like in the caucus leadership structure of the Progressive Caucus.
Can you just explain, just like list off some of the names? Because I always associate the Progressive Caucus with like Nancy Pelosi, and she fucking sucks.
Seth Moulton is who I think of.
Actually, neither of them are are members of the caucus. It's like people like AOC. It's everyone in the squad. It's basically most of the Democrats who want single payer. It's like Pramila Jayapal, Mark Pocan. It's Rokana. It's Diana Presley. The Progressive Caucus is like almost 40% of House Democrats, I think, at this point. Something like that. It's Barbara Lee, who's famously like the only person to vote against the Afghanistan war. Like Lloyd Doggett, who is a co-sponsor of Medicare for All. He's actually a committee chair.
Dude, Joe Kennedy III is in the caucus.
That's my point. That's my point. That's why these like new like membership requirements are important, because it helps weed out the Joe Kennedys from the caucus. Because if the Joe Kennedys of the caucus don't vote in line with the caucus's position at least 2/3 of the time, they're gonna get kicked out eventually. Like, I hope to see that like they become like kind of like the Freedom Caucus of the left. I know people complain that we don't want to be compared to the Freedom Caucus, but no, there should be, because the Freedom Caucus was incredibly effective. They had goals, they had principles, they had objectives, and they were largely successful. Sure, they're like right-wing psychopaths, but like they were very effective right-wing psychopaths. Why not use those tactics for better ends?
Tactics get muddied. Like, you can't use the name of all of the tactics just because sometimes they're really bad. Like, Machiavelli has ruined a whole set of tactics that are perfectly reasonable. If you want to change a community, go live within it. But don't call it Machiavellianism.
We call it that.
Don't make the connection. Like, it's not useful to make that connection. You can take out, hey, in this particular case, but you should leave off the upper label in those cases.
Fair.
I have a little bit of trust in AOC because, like, has connection to other groups. I have no trust in other people, like especially people like Kennedy, not to randomly isolate themselves from people who should be supporting them. There is no one who considers themselves a socialist who's like, yes, we should give big agriculture the right to completely and utterly destroy farmers by owning exactly the things that are valuable on their farm and not the things that are cost sinks. And like, yes, the birds should belong to the big company, and the land and all of the infrastructure that means maintaining should belong to the little person, and all of the costs should fall like that. No one thinks like that. We don't necessarily all know about it, but like the way that Kennedy talks about small businesses picking themselves up, you think that he thinks that they deserve to be screwed over. Like, it creates this problem that's horrific because people think we don't care, and anyone who understood does care. And we really should be talking about big agriculture. I'm probably the worst person to do it because I am not going to talk about it without poor chickens involved. But it's still a huge, huge problem. And Kennedy gives everyone a bad name. I mean, I'm picking on Kennedy, but they're all pretty bad.
Kennedy is a bad name.
He is a bad person. It is what it is. And like, honestly, I know I sound very like optimistic.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to shit on you this much. Like, I'm just shitting on the caucus because it historically has been awful. What it feels like to me, it's like you're saying the Communist Party of the USA has like taken a new line. It's just, I'll believe it when I see it. You know what I'm saying?
What I'm saying is like it's improvement, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be like a huge like shift. It's not going to create this huge shift, but I see is like in like the long-term trajectory, I think this is a very good thing. In the short term, I don't really think it's going to come of anything, but it's progress because it could be a stepping stone for something bigger down the line.
Right. It's one of those baby steps.
I should have like clarified that, because I'm typically, when it comes to like federal stuff, I'm usually thinking like 9 moves ahead.
Ninth dimensional chess.
But I
want to play Star Trek chess. Please let us play Star Trek chess. I would like totally set up electronic version of this.
Know how it works?
There are rules.
Nope.
I know that there are rules. I know that they're online. I've like wanted to play this since seeing Star Trek. Now I need to like actually do it.
While we're recording a podcast is the perfect time to... I'm just kidding.
Look up Star Trek rules.
Do it.
Joe, you want to talk about them vaccines?
Well, first I would like to talk about Pfizer's CEO.
Talk about that guy, Z.
Well, they technically do not pay me. I still think they are evil. Last week when they announced that the partial data, the vaccines are 90% effective. Guess who sold 132,508 shares of the company's stock? Their CEO, $5.6 million is how much that was worth. So he sold like $5 million of stock the morning that they announced this results that got the market to like spike up really hard. And then it crashed the day after.
This
Fucking owned.
This is such a sad story too, because like if you read the whole story, Pfizer's excuse is always like, well, this is actually a routine part of something that CEOs do specifically so that people can't accuse them of insider trading. It's like, well, it's not working, guys. You need to try harder.
Yeah, they're not really great at excuses.
That looks a lot like insider trading.
Exactly. When I saw that, I was like, this just stinks to hell of that. If it looks like it, it is. It just is in this case.
It sort of reminds me of the way that like capitalism in particular goes through these longer term cycles, but those cycles are getting more and more rapid, where like there's just a period of super inflated stock prices and then they just plummet to the ground. And that's normal now.
Yep, we're just kind of in the shits.
Like there used to be, there was time between these like explosions of upward and downward momentum, but now it seems like it's happening every few years, if not multiple times
like
a
every
year.
few days.
Yeah.
It happens a lot of round announcements, though, because we've taken away all of the regulatory stuff around that. And there's so much automation that when there is some amount, like someone has some information, all of the algorithms know that that person has some information. They guess about how valuable it is. They only really care about if it goes up. Like that's the most valuable thing for them. They win some and they lose some, but they're almost like overall, they're going to jump up above average. So you're going to see all of these spikes just because it's all automated. It's not individuals making a guess that it's averaged. It's, oh, someone has information that I don't. Use it.
Totally legal and totally cool.
Is it illegal? Well, not really. So I guess you're good. Basically the operating assumption.
I actually didn't know about the Pfizer guy, insider trading. So you brought a whole new dimension to the story. I was just happy that somebody announced that there might be a vaccine, which like I don't believe the like 90% effective numbers. I think that's kind of like they're trying to show off. They're goosing that a little bit, but
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is like I think it's because it's like it's a partial result from like an early like phase 3 trial, and also Pfizer's got the problem of like logistically speaking, their vaccine needs to be stored in like minus 90 Fahrenheit conditions. How are they going to be able to distribute that on a mass scale?
It's the normal operating temperature of Pete Buttigieg's heart.
No, I think his heart is slightly colder than that.
I thought you were going to say that was the normal
Absolute
operating temperature of chicken pox vaccines, which is not the case because it's much colder. But like, yes, on Pete Buttigieg's heart, definitely.
That's a pretty dark timeline if they actually are like punching up the numbers. You would hope that like science reporters are, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know if
It's the company that reported it, not the scientists necessarily themselves.
Right. Well, that's the thing, until we can have medicine that is completely extricated from the capitalist machine and money, we're always going to be wondering, like, oh, are they exaggerating? Because, like, I remember when the tests were coming out and all of the reporting was like, well, this is only accurate 70% of the time or something. Like, that's not great, but it would be shitty if it were actually even less than that, right? I don't want to live in this world anymore.
I mean, like, part of Econ 101 is how R&D works, and it's like, we're supposed to expect that all innovation happens behind this fucking iron curtain. I can't think of a better, I'm gonna think about a more American
Most
way to say
R&D
that.
money.
Just go with it.
A black box. It happens in a black box. There you go. That's less Soviet.
There you go. It's also the assumption that like R&D money is like R&D is done primarily by private industry. That like private industry comes up with all this great innovation. It's like, no, not really, because most of these innovations are actually the product of publicly funded and public research entities. And most innovations are actually the product of the public sector, but the private sector swoops in to reap all the rewards. And that's also seemed to become like the normal like assumption that like, oh, like the private sector is responsible for everything.
Well, there are parts of the private sector, like these big corporations employ people to basically be patent hawks. So like when there is sufficient innovation, there's a guy there with the fucking patent immediately. And then that corporation can privatize all of the work done in the public sector completely legally and make a ton of money off of it, and then have basically a monopoly on whatever that is for years.
Conversely, snap up a patent to prevent it from ever seeing the light of day, because if it did, it would harm the interest of your, to put it one way, it would hurt the interest of people writing your checks.
Right. It's like a non-disclosure agreement, but for actual stuff.
Yeah. What a litigious and wonderful world we live in. I actually, one of my closest friends from high school went to law school and became an IP lawyer. And as time has gone on, I've started to think about that, being like, wow, that's terrible. But he stopped talking to me after I sent him one too many emails while I was manic. So he can go fuck himself, quite frankly.
Indeed.
There's a second vaccine report that's come out about possibly it's effective. Moderna, another company in Cambridge, they came out yesterday saying that their vaccine is 95% effective, but still that means that 5% of people who are being tested on are still somehow getting sick. So that's still not great either.
It's also a small sample size that they're working with, because they have to let a certain number of people get COVID before they can even release the product.
It doesn't feel that great. It's oh, well, we're still kind of fucking up, but everyone's celebrating that we're only kind of fucking up.
I mean, the alternative would be get a bunch of your test subjects sick with COVID, which
herd immunity.
Seems pretty unethical.
Yep.
But that said, I mean, unethical, fuck it. That's in line with, the rest of the, to quote Joe, Dickensian hellscape in which we live.
So moving on to other aspects of the Dickensian hellscape. The new numbers are out. New numbers came out this afternoon, just a couple hours ago, from the Department of Public Health. The current death toll in this state from COVID is now at 10,360. We passed 10,000 last Thursday. For perspective, 10,360 people is a little over 1/10 of 1% of the entire state population. So 1/10 of 1% of the entire state population has died in this past 8 months. Cuba, with a population double ours, have suffered less than 1,000 deaths, despite the fact that they have twice as many people.
I think it's times like these when we don't, the percentage system doesn't really do justice to the thing that we're trying to use to demonstrate with it, 0.1% sounds like a pretty small amount. But it's actually, in this case, it's a fuck ton of people that are dead.
In such little time, though.
I mean, yeah, the comparative Cuba thing is useful, for sure.
Well, also, you could think about it as multiple 9/11 terrorist attacks.
That's true. And just in Massachusetts.
Preventable deaths.
Yeah, that's just Massachusetts. So, Charlie Baker has, the blood of, 10,000 people on his hands at this point. Because at best, it's, negligent homicide. He has done a terrible job. I want to crack someone over the head with a frying pan the next time I'm told that he's done a great job as governor. He's done a great job managing this crisis. He didn't get off his ass until about a month after it was clearly apparent that shit was really hitting the fan and that this was a problem. He then rolled it back in May, then decided in the late summer that, oh, this is actually a problem again, and now here we are. They just reopened the mobile field hospital in Worcester. And, he's been a terrible governor in general. He came into office, he started trying to destroy the T, he went to war with the teachers' unions, and now he's back trying to destroy the T. It's a recurring theme. He's been a terrible governor. He's a terrible person.
Jesse, is it that time?
Speaking about the MBTA, actually, what's really appalling
is your name Jesse? Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, Joe, you can keep talking.
I'm just kidding.
Grab the phone.
MBTA Secretary Stephanie Pollock said this week, or she suggested, that even if Congress were to bail out
her last
MBTA,
name is Pog?
Pollock.
Oh, okay.
But this was in a Globe article the other day. The MBTA secretary suggested that even if Congress were to bail out the T, they'd still go ahead with the service cuts anyways.
All right, so what am I telling the large in charge?
The asshat in chief?
Yeah, what did you call him?
Asshat in chief.
Secretary of being a dipshit who gets his hair done all the time.
Oh, yeah.
That's what. Okay, go for it.
I stand by that.
I'm gonna have to call that executive office again.
What if they have changed it so you can't leave a message there?
We'll find a way.
Life finds a way.
Life,
That would be the power of the pod.
finds a way.
If I may.
And the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
All right, what am I gonna tell him?
I find it appalling that, like, yeah, even if we got the money that we needed to bail out the T, we're still going to make all these cuts anyways, and we're just going to pocket the money and wait for some other time.
I thought you were going to tell him that he's Secretary of Dipshit, being a dipshit, that thing.
I mean, he is a dipshit. He's a sociopath, to put it nicely.
Yes.
And, like, I honestly kind of hope that, like, I don't know, someone burns down his house or something while he's not around. Because, like, if burning down a police precinct seemed to work for Minnesota, like, maybe burning down the governor's house might save the T.
Nice of you to
Burn down the tea.
just wish property.
Liberate the tea. Don't burn it down. We want trains running all the time, not less, man.
No, I said burn down the governor's house while he's
Yeah.
around.
It's very kind of Joe to
Set
be
all
like,
the train
oh,
tracks
he's not
to his
there.
house. The Secretary of Drinking Piss. That's what he is.
Just want you to lose your house, not anything actually important to you.
Call him that. If you're going to leave him a voicemail, call him the Secretary of Drinking Piss.
He has a net worth in the tens of millions. So I'm sure he'll be fine.
You can just buy some more houses.
Exactly.
He's probably already got more houses. Fucking A. He probably has like 5.
Yeah.
I'm gonna Google this.
Plus-
Can move into a train.
Plus, his house is kind of ugly anyways.
Charlie Baker living on a train. How many houses?
Did you hear that, Charlie Baker? You got Joe calling you out for your ugly ass house, bitch. How you come?
Alright, Charlie Baker only has one house. Amazing.
And it's an ugly ass house, according to Joe. So
You can be his neighbor in Swampscott. Oh, that is.
live next to that ugly ass piece of shit. No, thank you.
Wow.
I want to live next to a beautiful house, not Charlie Baker's ugly house.
Oh, wait. This
I've never looked at a
Swampscott.
picture of Charlie Baker's house.
I'm gonna.
No offense to Swampscott, but I would never want to live there. It's too far from like any public transportation.
Where is Swampscott? Exactly. Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
What the fuck? It hung up.
What did I? What? That's the
Seriously?
power of the pod.
This is fucked.
We are changing. We have politicians cowering in fear from us, Jesse. This is fantastic. The power we have.
Doing something right.
But like, what if other people actually had like legitimate complaints that they wanted to talk about?
Oh no.
Who else is gonna complain at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday?
We're
A
monsters.
lot of people out there who have a lot of complaints, Joe, especially on Tuesdays.
I just put a picture of Charlie Baker's house in the chat. It's pretty weird looking.
Who are these people? Who are these
I
two
don't
right
know.
here?
Some yoo-hoos.
One of them looks like a libertarian, and the other says that thankfully
both look
Massachusetts
like
has a
libertarians.
well-educated governor. Yeah, those are definitely libertarians.
What is that style of house?
It's
What is
ugly.
that?
I
That's
know
not
what
a
that
style,
is.
dude.
U-G-O-Y. You ain't got no alibi.
Well, it
you
accurately
ugly.
describes what it looks like. Because
It's pretty weird. It's like it should be a cube, but then
Yeah,
one
it's
half
like
of it has a rounded balcony, and the other one has a square one.
it looks like it was inspired by one of those cool Victorian turrets, but just
But it's on the first floor, and it's only one
but
section.
it's also like it's like an actual circle. It looks like shit.
It's very peculiar.
the circle.
It looks like they combined a couple different ideas. And it doesn't
Yeah,
work.
in a way that
Yeah, what the
was
fuck? Like
just-
the first floor is rounded, then the top floor is not. It's so strange.
See?
Or it's more like the left side is rounded and the right side isn't.
Yeah, but the second floor isn't. It's square. It's not round.
Well, the balcony, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
No, the
there.
balcony is, but the building isn't. That's what I
Right.
mean.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's be straight about this.
And then the balcony jets out in the middle side. Like this is you're right, Joe. This is so fucking weird. This is McMansion hell. Piece of shit.
Right?
It is.
Fuck Charlie Baker.
And look where the fucking that window on the second floor is faced, like not even in the center of the balcony. It's
Yeah, that's
See? Burning it down seems like a good idea.
it doesn't even divide the balconies in half, even though it's halfway between the other windows.
it's just it's so asymmetrical. This thing is a piece of garbage. Yeah.
Where's that the drop about the people looking whatever, the mean, ugly looking whatever?
Troll looking fucking horrible looking beasts.
Do we want to do Rabid Radlibs? Because I'm
Yeah, I
ready.
think we want to do it.
I actually set this story up so it'd be like a nice segue into it, because I felt like this was like Radlibs adjacent.
Sort of. This is completely unrelated to what you said, but cue music. In post, there will have been music. So, I'm Jesse, and this is Rabid Radlibs. Today, we are going to be talking about SWERFs.
That's what SWERFs are, for those of us who don't know.
The top definition of SWERF on Urban Dictionary reads as follows. It's an acronym for Sex Worker Exclusionary Radical Feminist. A person who espouses to be a feminist, but who does not believe that women engaged in any form of voluntary sex work should be included in the fight for equality, especially in employment or salary parity. And it even has the word rabid right in there. This rabid exclusion of an entire class of women, is usually a belief based on misplaced, uptight morality, and I could not agree more. Sex work, regardless of its moral implications, serves as an adaptation to the socio-economic exploitation of women, minorities, and other vulnerable peoples as ordained under feudal or theocratic forms of governance and recreated under neoliberal capitalism. In other words, it functions as the only method of eking out a meager profit from sexual servitude. To demonize the sex worker for taking part in a market for coerced sex, which is labor, mind you, is just as, if not more absurd, than demonizing the minimum wage fry cook for participating in a market for coerced labor. There is absolutely no justification for taking an antagonistic stance toward sex workers if we seek to liberate the working class. Moreover, any attempt to abolish sex work before we have eradicated the dynamics of exploitation necessitated by employer-employee relationships is likely to cause irreparable damage in the lives of sex workers. Legislation to remedy this problem has typically resulted in mass incarceration, thereby exchanging domestic abuse for that sanctioned by the state. Multiple meanings of the word abuse would fit there. As we have seen with, for example, prohibition, forcing an economy underground endangers workers and clients alike. This is certainly the case when demand for the service or commodity at hand is inelastic, like it is with drugs. It is time for a heavy dose of capitalist realism. What can we do to better protect our fellows in the sex trade from the horrors of clandestine management? The first sensible measure would be to decriminalize sex work. This would, of course, warrant regulations and restrictions and would open the door to labor rights and unions. If this seems absurd to you, consider that pornography, another commodification of sexuality, comprises the majority of web content and generates an enormous amount of profit. We can safely conjecture that large firms are already profiting massively off the labor of sex workers and that those profits are not being distributed to the workforce in an equitable manner. We can likewise conjecture that, even under ideal economic conditions, sex work could remain a viable industry for anyone so inclined to work in that sector. This analysis is not focused on that cohort. In 2018, a legislative package known as FOSTA SESTA, or I hear more people calling it SESTA FOSTA, a shorthand coupling of Allow States and Victims to Fight Online Trafficking Act and the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, was signed into law. This legislation ostensibly holds web platforms accountable for the content of their users in order to fight sex trafficking, but various civil rights groups such as the ACLU and the Sex Workers Outreach Project have rightly and harshly criticized the new mandates, alleging that censorship incentives will push sex workers off of internet platforms and onto the streets. The Internet Association, which represents such tech giants as Facebook and Google, opposed the legislation until it was amended with language that broadened corporate absolution. Other corporate supporters of FOSTA SESTA include Amazon, Microsoft, Uber, Netflix, and Oracle. Just great guys, we love them, folks. Timothy Head, executive director of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, an evangelical Tea Party-aligned 501c4, which lobbies against abortion, medical marijuana, and same-sex marriage, and in favor of limited government, lower taxes, education reform, free markets, strong national defense, and the country of Israel.
Can we clarify that education reform, we mean economic and racial segregation. That's what we really mean.
Yeah, and probably like not teaching evolution. So continuing on, they labor. Cut. Try that again. They lobby in favor of limited government, lower taxes, education reform, free markets, strong national defense. I can't get through this. And the country of Israel, like I don't. For some reason, that shit always gets me. Has also pledged.
That really went with that. Is all of that? Wow, that's impressive.
They have also pledged support for FOSTA SESTA. As recently as January 2020, a challenge to the new statute was upheld in an appeals court, but the bulk of the fight against FOSTA SESTA is still ahead of us. Any solution which neglects the physical, emotional, and material security of sex workers is an insufficient one. We must confront the cultural and societal attitudes which underpin our seemingly timeless tradition of sexual servitude if we wish to ever establish genuine working class solidarity. In Chapter 7 of Woman and Socialism, published in 1879, August Babel wrote, quote, "The state that seeks to regulate prostitution by police control forgets that it owes equal protection to both sexes. It degrades and demoralizes the woman. Every system of official regulation of vice permits of arbitrary police rule and leads to the infringement of personal safety against arbitrary arrest and imprisonment, against which even the lowest criminal is guarded. As these encroachments occur only at the expense of the woman, they lead to an unnatural inequality between her and the man. The woman is degraded to a mere object and is no longer treated as a person. She is excluded from the law." And we don't have to use man and woman. I mean, this was written again in 1879, but the sentiment very much still stands. In Sexual Relations and the Class Struggle, published in 1921, Alexandra Kollontai wrote, "The three basic circumstances distorting the modern psyche, extreme egoism, the idea that married partners possess each other, and the acceptance of the inequality of the sexes in terms of physical and emotional experience must be faced if the sexual problem is to be settled. People will find the magic key with which they can break out of their situation only when their psyche has had a sufficient store of feelings of consideration, when their ability to love is greater, when the idea of freedom in personal relationships becomes a fact, and when the principle of comradeship triumphs over the traditional idea of inequality and submission. The sexual problems cannot be solved without this radical re-education of our psyche. We must remember that only a code of sexual morality that is in harmony with the problems of the working class can serve as an important weapon in strengthening the working class's fighting position. The experience of history teaches us that much. What can stop us? Using this weapon in the interests of the working class who are fighting for a communist system and for new relationships between the sexes that are deeper and more joyful. What indeed?"
Did anybody want to add anything to that?
Kalanta is cool. That's all.
I didn't know a new acronym existed, but the history is always really, really neat because there's a lot of awesome radical people from a long, long time ago. I guess I shouldn't say in history because they still exist too, but like old and new.
Yeah, Marxist feminism is fucking dope. Kollontai actually wrote an autobiography. It was a short one, but it was focused on sexual liberation and the sort of working class route to achieve that. Not just for herself, but for everyone, men and women. And if we're talking about this in a modern context, non-binary, what have you.
In the piece you just wrote, it was very much written as women assumed to be the provider. That does cover a large amount of what modern sex work looks like, as weird as that is. While there certainly do exist male and non-binary folk who do this, it's certainly way more rare. Unfortunately, that means there's even less protection when things go wrong, and things often go wrong more violently for them.
Yeah, I mean, I know firsthand people who have had to turn to sex work, especially, they're struggling with addiction and incurred some serious trauma over that period of time. So still very much real and very much not limited to women, although women definitely see the brunt of it in terms of the social dynamic and the violence, and they're probably going to be more impacted by more strict censorship.
Definitely.
That's all I got. Dun-dun-dun.
Woo!
Dude, you have the sound. Dun-dun-dun. Yeah.
Yeah! We'd love to hear it.
We love it, folks. We love it. We really
Love
love
to
it.
hear it, folks. Ellie,
What's up?
is there some shit?
There's some shit, Mr. Scott, today.
Well, we'd like to hear about this shit that you just can't make up.
Well, here's what I've got. Thanks to AP Weird News, and also whichever one of you guys told me about AP Weird News, because I was really struggling this week. I got two things. One of them is like a month old and one of them is a little bit old, but like that doesn't really matter how old they are. Somebody, this AP journalist was just jerking off while they wrote this initial line of this article.
Is this about Jeffrey Toobin? No, I'm just kidding.
No, you can just. They're the first line: Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming. Cooking chickens in a Yellowstone hot spring landed 3 people in hot water. Sorry, I used to work in journalism, so you get like extra lulls out of ridiculously apt headlines and leaders, I believe is the term. I've already forgotten all of my everything I learned in grad school. Anyway, apparently
gotta rope them in.
Some guys were in Yellowstone National Park and they tried to make some chicken in a hot spring. Somebody asked defendant Eric Roberts, I guess this was when he was being arraigned or whatever. Eric Roberts of Idaho Falls, Idaho, was asked Thursday what his group was up to in the Yellowstone. No, not the actor.
Not the
brother
star
of Julia Roberts.
And Dark Knight,
brother of Julia Roberts, yes. Yeah, that guy. Not him. They were like, what were you up to? And he said, make dinner. So this guy was...
so they thought, they were hoping that the hot spring would boil the
literally
chicken
what
for them?
They were hoping. Yep.
All right.
Put the park ranger found 2 whole chickens in a burlap sack in one of the hot springs. And those guys were ordered to serve 2 days in jail and pay $540 in fines.
Wait. What crime did they commit?
I don't
Is
know.
boiling chickens in a sack a crime? What the fuck?
They do not. It's a very short article, and they do not name the official crime, but they just say getting too close to and messing around with Yellowstone's hot springs are no-nos and can be dangerous.
If it's like a trespassing thing, I get that.
I vaguely remember hearing this story already, and I think it was trespassing charges because, like, I know it's illegal to jump in the hot springs at Yellowstone.
Yeah, you also will probably die. Like, people have definitely died. I mean, like, it's, you don't want to fuck around with the hot springs because they have special bacteria in them, and you don't want to.
They're hot.
Yeah, they're also hot. That's the main thing. Don't put your
hot.
You absolutely could cook a chicken in them, but don't do it. Just go somewhere else and buy a chicken that is already cooked.
Like, this wasn't a stupid idea per se. It was just like, you don't have to, like, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, it's like, great to read about. And I'm sure we all know that one guy from high school who we could totally see doing this.
I don't.
Oh, for sure.
One of my old roommates would probably, this is the kind of thing he probably got up to years before I met him. He wouldn't do it now. Anyway, that's one thing. The other thing is ex-jail employees charged for playing Baby Shark on repeat, which apparently...
oh, yeah.
You heard about this?
Yeah, it's fucked.
Ex-jail.
Yeah, they don't work there anymore, obviously. 2 guys who worked at a jail in Oklahoma and also their supervisor. Oh, this is great. Yeah, they face misdemeanor cruelty charges after investigators found that they forced inmates to stand handcuffed for hours and listen to the children's song Baby Shark on repeat. At least 4 inmates were secured to a wall with their hands cuffed behind them while the song played on a loop at a loud volume.
What is Baby Shark? I feel like I'm asking.
Sounds like something that would happen at a CIA black site.
I will put on a.
I feel like I'm gonna.
Don't do it.
This is a bad idea. I shouldn't have asked.
Real quick.
Yeah, don't do it, please.
It's a highly repetitive children's song. I'm sure you've had highly repetitive children's songs stuck in your head before.
Great.
Let's not subject anyone to that.
What it is, but
Beach Boys song stuck in my head for the past week and is driving me insane. I don't need something else stuck in my head.
Let's just say it's pitch shifted to sound even more creepy.
A little bit, yeah. One of my
Yeah. I know what it is. Turn it off.
Yeah. Okay. One of my Bollywood classmates used that song in a routine last year, and it's a masterpiece. Anyway, so those guys don't work there anymore, obviously. And Oklahoma County District Attorney David Prater said, "It was unfortunate that I could not find a felony statute to fit this fact scenario. I would have preferred filing a felony on this behavior," which honestly I can understand.
Again, CIA kind of shit.
For real.
Oh, yeah.
I might add that this is not the first time that this has been employed as like sort of a weapon. They did the same thing in Florida in 2019 to like an entire plaza.
Wow.
To keep out homeless people, which...
Jesus.
Yeah.
It surprised me. I mean, it is Florida.
Were they playing Baby Shark?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Baby Shark is, I was kind of amused when the song came out because I remembered like a slightly different version from my like day camp that I used to go to in the summer when I was a kid because my parents both worked and didn't trust me to be on my own. And that one was like, had hand movements and there was like, you know, different hand lengths for Mama Shark, etc. It was better than this one.
This is fucking sadistic. I mean, the New York Post is dog shit, but like, it's really, this is pretty sadistic. The way that they worded it. Baby shark, mommy shark, homeless shark. The town of West Palm Beach, Florida is employing a creative technique to stop its homeless population from sleeping in a park overnight, blaring annoying children's songs on loop. That's just like cruel and unusual
psychological warfare. Yeah, it's torture.
Here's a creative way to get homeless people not in squares. Give them hotel rooms.
Yeah. Give them a cheeseburger. Give them a tent. Give them a hotel room.
has cheeseburger.
Yes, cheeseburgers for all.
Or vegan burgers.
This is actually pretty dope, though. In the article, it says, one homeless person told the Palm Beach Post the music wouldn't stop him from sleeping on the pavilion. It doesn't bother me. I still lay down in there, but it's on and on, the same songs, he said.
That's amazing. Maybe he's a master meditator.
This reminds me of a story I saw when I was in high school about these guys in at a nuclear missile silo were found dead asleep with like the blast door to the control center open by the pizza guy.
That sounds like the beginning of Futurama.
You can just have a pizza guy walk into your nuclear power plant, like whatever.
No, it was like one of the silos with like the intercontinental ballistic missile warheads. It was like back in like 2014.
They still use like floppy disks.
Yeah,
my dad still uses floppy disks.
Yeah, I mean I'm not trying to make a joke. Like they still use floppy disks. That's their technology.
I just looked it up and apparently there were multiple incidents across multiple years.
Pizza guys gaining access to nuclear missile silos.
Yeah, there was
covert pizza guys / Soviet spies. Yeah.
There was one incident where the people were found
Deliver
sleeping
pizza.
with the blast doors, with the missile doors open in Montana, and then there was another incident in North Dakota.
We go in with pepperoni.
We keep our missiles in weird places.
We keep our missiles in places where there's not people.
It's not because there's not people. The logic of where we keep our nuclear missiles was that, they're far enough out of range from, Soviet nukes that, if we all die, the people manning the nukes are not going to die before, they can fire off a few.
The real crime here is they putting pineapple on pizza. Yeah.
Capitalist.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
I totally have pineapple on my pizza.
I only like pineapple on my... there's a specific pizza from down.
Now I must know why do people get pineapple on their pizza?
Because they like it, Joe.
They like how it tastes. It hits their mouth and they go, this is enjoyable.
It's exactly what happens.
It's a good description of eating.
Thank you.
I love you, Joe.
I love you too, Joe.
Good to know.
Let's put a whole heap of love on Joe, everyone. Yeah.
Joe is cool. We love him.
Joe is great.
Love, love, love.
Okay, this is starting to get weird. A little bit.
Dial it down a little bit. Joe is okay. Joe is our comrade.
And we love him.
He's all right. No, too much.
We just adore him.
You know what? Fine. Actually, he's an old person murderer, and he's a piece of shit. No, I'm just kidding. He's a vampire of the elderly. We can't trip your love.
Not all old people.
So how are we feeling? Do we think there's going to be a coup still? I'm just kidding. I think those talks died down rather quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it was right around the time that Rudy Giuliani was put in charge of all the lawsuits for the recount, which I honestly would have loved if, he just went on TV and just did what, he normally does, which is, batshit insanity. To quote one of my college roommates, for the memes. For the memes.
What you gotta say now that the Vine is gone. Can't do things for the Vine anymore. I, for one, would like to see a coup that fails miserably. That's what I would like to see.
And the resulting arrest of the current person.
Yeah, I want to see a coup on par with Venezuela.
You just told what I was about to say, because given like how badly they failed with Venezuela, I think the way Matt Crispin put it was that like at the time that like it was like if like everyone involved with the Bay of Pigs had suffered like a traumatic brain injury.
Have you seen the picture of like the two guys that the Venezuelan Navy like tied up?
Oh yeah.
And they were on the ground on their faces. Like one of the guys pissed himself, but he was on a hill.
Were those guys Blackwater guys?
He was on a hill, so the piss just like went into his face.
Oh no!
That's awesome.
That's like a dog running over and humping you level of humiliation, which is personally my favorite thing. Like, I want to see Trump on the ground, and then a dog comes over.
Yeah, do you just personally want to see Trump get arrested?
No, only if a dog humps him.
Yes.
Speaking of Venezuela, it was really funny. There, Nicolas Maduro, in response to like all of the presidents who keep resigning in Peru, he offered to send them Juan Guaido if they want a new president.
Yeah, fucking thanks, but no thanks. God, what if Juan Guaido is such a fucking joke?
That was the joke. That
that was very funny. Maduro, we appreciate your sense of humor, comrade.
I learned that if we do get a coup, it will technically be called an auto coup because Trump is already in office.
Yeah.
He's just accumulating more power.
Here's the thing about Trump, and like he's a creature of self-preservation. And if he says like, "Oh, I'm going to coup or I'm going to stay as president," like what's going to happen is somebody's going to tap him on the shoulder with a pair of handcuffs, and then he's going to be like, "What? Nope, take it back. Never mind." And the reason why they're building that huge fucking wall around the White House right now, I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it, is so that Trump can get some distance when he leaves, so nobody can see. The cameras aren't there. You can't have like a bunch of annoying liberal press people ask him questions.
Yeah, I think it's all about saving face. It's all about saving face.
He's going to be an obstinate shit for the next, probably month and a half. But by January, he'll be out of there. So
apparently, CBS News says he's tweeted about the election 400 times in the past week.
Cool. I don't know. He doesn't even like being president. He wants to just go back to doing rallies and being a loud demagogue.
He wanted to win, but he didn't want to be president. And so he, if he can tell himself that he won through fraudulence, or that, Biden won and it's illegitimate and he's still the president, then, he can just, leave, give Biden the thing, and then just go on his press tours endlessly. His stadium tour that he wants to go on and start his network, if he does that. It probably will be he'll just get a show on, Fox.
Oh, yeah.
I think that he could come back with a vengeance in 4 years.
Such a fucking downgrade, though.
I know.
I don't think he's not. No, but if he, I totally understand what people are saying that, because Biden, the administration might be so ineffective that we'll get a red wave in 2024.
He literally set up a
but it's not
action committee.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be Trump himself.
Yeah,
is the point.
It's not going to be him. It's going to be I honestly think it could be Tucker Carlson or something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be somebody in league of Trump. Very similar background, probably a media pundit, but not him.
I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying it's possible.
Imagine
possible scenario.
President Gavin McGinnis.
Oh God!
God damn it! That man ate his piss, drank his own piss in a bowl of cereal. If you've seen that video, I've watched it.
It's a thing you can do, I guess. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Why did he do
the
that?
early days of Vice?
Literally, why? Just for the shock value?
Yeah, the early days of Vice were just shock value bullshit. It was terrible.
He also literally fucked himself with a dildo on air to prove that he wasn't homophobic.
Oh, right.
Totally normal human behavior.
No, he's very Christian. Okay. He's an atheist who became very Christian.
Hold on here.
So, basically Dave Rubin?
No, he's a bro.
Dave Rubin has, he has the messianic appreciation, but he's not religious. He's for the whole, look and feel of it, but he's not actually a religious man himself. He is drawn to that image.
I think Gavin McGinnis actually has his own thoughts and feelings.
And they're all fucking weird.
Yeah, and they're all garbage, might I add.
Wasn't there a recent story about him finally being I can't keep pretending that I'm not a Nazi?
Well, there's been this
probably.
weird, there's been maybe maybe, but there's like also at the same time, there's been this like weird insurrection in the Proud Boys recently where like somebody who's like been more hardline and wants them to be like explicit about the fact that they are far right and the fact that they are like essentially Nazis, has been trying to take the reins and take control. And McGinnis has been trying to like distance himself. So I don't know, but like it wouldn't fucking surprise me.
There will be at least one Nazi in Congress next year. Madison Cawthorn was elected to the North Carolina 11th Congressional District, and apparently he spent a lot of his like free time as like a side gig as a pastor trying to convert Jews and Muslims to Christianity. He's very obsessed with, quote, the Jewish blood running in their veins. That's a direct quote.
Again, totally normal human behavior.
Yep.
Nothing to see here.
Freakish.
I think I made the thing up that I just said about Gavin McInnes, but yeah, I mean...
No, but like all of us would totally fit.
Yep.
So we got two QAnon crazy people and a Nazi. A Nazi who is 25 years old in a very red district, which means we'll probably be stuck with him for at least a couple decades.
Apparently, 3 anti-fascists got stabbed in D.C.
Yep, at the Million MAGA March.
Yeah, I saw like an abridged version of Alex Jones's speech given at that march, and I'm very confused.
What do you mean you're confused?
I expected him to tie in like brain force or something, or something about the gay frogs.
Gay frogs, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he might. I didn't watch the whole thing, so he could have. But
I don't even believe this. This is what the Nazis believe.
that shit that Trent posted about like Ice World or whatever. It's like perfect example of just complete stupid utter bullshit that Nazis believe.
I mean, Nazis are not the brightest bunch.
No. Can I bring up a story?
Yes.
News story late in the show. Sorry, everyone. But no, today in East Boston, there were ICE agents and they arrested someone actually in my neighborhood. So pretty annoyed, pretty mad. Boston, are we a sanctuary city? We should be. If we are not.
We are.
What the fuck's going on there, Walsh? What the fuck you doing, friend? You piece of shit. And Massport. Apparently it was Massport who let them come to the area and use the trains to like monitor people. So fuck you, Massport. Yeah. Fuck Massport. if there's any
Sanctuary state legislation has been blocked for a long time. That was a lot of what the Nick Elgato race was about, was that the prior head of the committee had just stalled on that, despite it being his bill. And so, yeah, okay, get rid of that person, bring in someone new, and we're still not getting anywhere.
Hooray for uselessness.
Sorry to bring it down, everyone.
No.
Also, the Boston Public Schools cooperates with ICE. Like, that one's a little bit more shit.
Can I
what
take
the fuck?
the opportunity to say, fuck Charlie Baker? I'm just content with just blaming him for this.
You could totally blame Baker for this. The reason that DeLeo says he hasn't passed it is because the Baker would veto it. We probably have veto-proof majority, but maybe not entirely clear. But we could bring it to a vote and we'd find out, and then we could blame someone other than DeLeo. But until then, blame DeLeo and Baker.
The Center for Immigration Studies says that Boston is a sanctuary city, despite what you just said about Boston public schools. That's pretty stupid. Cambridge and Somerville as well. But these are specific things, like they have detainer policies, like in Boston will not honor an ICE detainer without a criminal warrant. So I don't know if that's like easy to get around. But that was from a nice document.
It seems like a pretty shitty... It's not a very strong criteria for being a sanctuary city.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably one of those things that like sounds better than it actually is in real life.
Yeah, that's literally just the same criteria that like anybody can use at any time. You can just say like, come back when you have a warrant, and they have to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and then they come back with a warrant, and you're fucked.
Yeah, and that might have been with the situation this morning or afternoon.
That's what I mean by means testing. Is like it's a sanctuary city unless XYZ happen. Instead of it's like we're a sanctuary city, full stop. Like,
yeah. Unless the school system gives ICE access to info on more than 100 student incident reports.
Also, let me clarify. I mean, I don't expect that cops will just like leave if you tell them to come back with a warrant. But I mean, I just feel like the standard at least should be better than like what is already on paper.
I agree. I second that call.
Yeah, I could tell by the grunt that you were in solidarity with that assessment.
I second that emotion.
Third.
I love democracy. I love the republic.
If you feel like arresting me, if you got the notion. Well, I guess that doesn't work. I don't second that emotion.
Damn, boy.
Damn, boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick ass boy. Damn.
All right. Along our conversation, I thought of a couple movies to recommend, and that would be
Comrade Scott tells you what to watch.
one, They Live, the John Carpenter classic.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Like to hear that. And then also Bubba Hotep. I've referenced it before on this show. And so because Joe wants to steal the souls of old people, and the mummy in that movie is stealing the souls of old people. So Joe, you have a companion.
Is this becoming a thing now?
Yes.
Is this going to be like
We have bits, sir. This is a bit. You don't actually want to eat the souls of old people. You don't actually want to farm the elderly for adrenochrome. We know this.
Dave is not actually in the cave. Spoilers.
You're not supposed to tell people that.
That's what you think. You say I'm not in a cave, but like, look at these stalactites and stalagmites, and I'm getting it's dripping on me. I get the bats. I'm just lucky enough to have a laptop that seemingly has a battery that doesn't go out. Because how the fuck out the battery makes sense. But I am in this cave. I am in this cave.
Oh no! It sounds like he's getting farther away. He's getting deeper into the cave somehow.
Oh, no.
Sometimes I slip.
Come back, Dave.
Dave, follow the.
I was still trying to find a dial of ideas to turn it up.
Oh, no.
That's how I got in this cave in the first place. $5 on Patreon will help me get some spelunking equipment. I can find that dial, and then I can get the fuck out of here. It's a dial of ideas.
Joe's just like dying in the background over there. But no, seriously, we all have personas. We all have our things, like Jesse's got cats and I'm not non-binary. I don't know.
Well, what's Kit's thing then?
I don't know, Kit, what do you want to be your thing? You're also a metalhead.
I like dogs.
Dogs are good.
I thought I was like the ironic tank guy.
Yeah, that's your thing.
We
but
all
you
have-
also have cats.
But I
We
think everyone
all
else is a
contain
cat person. I'm a
multitudes.
dog person.
I
We have
literally
our-
contain
we have our
multitudes
soul cat
because
person.
they shoot me.
I say ironic, like,
That's so ironically.
but yeah.
Quote unquote. That just means that the tank inside you is a cute tank with like big eyes, like from Cars.
Oh, it's there, but it's being driven by a cat. That's how I
Yeah.
think about it.
There you go.
And all cats are comrades.
Exactly.
They are indeed. All cats are comrades.
We love
the
it.
bottom line.
That's right.
Were there any last words? And anybody had anything anybody wants to bring up? Or are we ready to wrap up?
Do you feel lucky, punk?
What the fuck?
There's this interesting
Not particularly.
story out of the Netherlands in which it's kind of difficult to explain instead of like to show.
Yeah. Well, that was a really good
because-
time when we're about to do outros.
Joe, what?
No, there's a thing where the train like ran over because it was like the end of the line that like basically went over like a bridge almost, but got caught by something else.
Yeah, that was dope, and it overran the barrier at the end, but there was a perfectly placed giant statue
Of a whale.
like, a whale's tail. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to share it out of the Discord so I can.
Yeah, that was on the AP Weird news page.
Well, I like
Yeah.
trains, so
Yeah, me too.
that was shared. Thank you.
I'm in a Facebook group that is both trainy and Lenin-y.
We love these hyper-specific Facebook groups, folks. We love them.
I have a Facebook group for my equal love of trains and Lenin. We love it, folks. We love it. That's some SEO for you. Some good SEO. All right, my name is Scott. You can find me on the internet, on Twitter, on Instagram, at DeathMullet. Joseph.
Okay, we're getting there. I am Joe.
Please go, Joe. You're a good man, my
I'm
friend.
in the process of going, and you're interrupting me. I am Joe. I'm mildly indifferent as to whether or not you should be able to find me on the internet, but if you feel like it, I'm on Twitter occasionally at JLFB96.
Joe, what about your OnlyFans?
Really impressive how shitty it is.
Well, anyway.
And what is Aleppo?
He loves that one, folks.
I'm just gonna mute myself so I can keep laughing without interrupting.
Ellie.
I'm Ellie. Don't find me. Don't arrest me. Don't find me. Don't send ICE to get me, even though they have no reason to. So far.
Do not eat.
Do not eat. No step on snack.
No step
Wait,
on snack.
don't
Thank you.
That we know of. Wait.
Let's move on.
Go Kit, go.
Hi, I'm Kit. They, them. I have said many times before here, but in case anyone's new, I think that the internet is bad for my mental health, and therefore I don't really exist unless you happen to know me in person. So you can find me here.
Schrodinger's Kit.
It's a good place to find you. Jesse.
In general.
Jesse, pronouns, he, him. Check out my SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/contingents Boston. I need to move over some of my cool drum kit stuff from the laptop. Gotta remember to hit up comrade-rosie.org. Click that Getting Involved tab. Select one or more mutual aid groups and just show them a little bit of love. A few bucks maybe, a few volunteer hours. They need your help. The people that they serve definitely need your help.
Get your mutual aid on, everyone. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Patreon, if you please. It's only $5 a month if you want some extra content. At Epic Incredulity. That's at Epic Incredulity. We're also on Facebook and YouTube at the Epoch of Incredulity. Hit up your mutual aid networks in your neighborhood. Contribute whatever you can. It's lovely. We love to see it, folks. And maybe throw us some money too. We love it. And that's your Epoch. Money's nice. Have a good week.
I would do.
Stop.
Give us all your money. Or just a little bit of it. Anything's good.
I guess all your fucking money.
No, enough. We just need enough to get Dave out of the cave.
Yeah, that's our main priority right now. He doesn't even know which one gives
It's only $5
stalactites
a month.
and which
Get me
are
out of here.
stalagmites.
Yeah, maybe I'll learn how to Google what the fuck a cave is, so I'll know the stalactites and the stalagmites.
Oh, man.
Joe, earlier when you were talking about Nicolas Maduro, you said his first name so fast that I heard nipples. Nipples Maduro. Oh, and you know what? Wait, no. Sorry. Maduro means like wood or something. No, it doesn't. No, I lied.
Nipple wood.
Forgetting. No, it doesn't mean that. I think it means right. Hold on. I'm going to figure this out.
That is actually a pretty cool picture of that train, actually.